Hey everyone, and thank you for joining Ask Christy, where women talk about everything. I am Christy, your host. Thank you for listening to me today. Today's episode is about the Great Divide, the misconception of conservative views propagated by the media. Now, I normally don't talk about politics here on the show, but for many of us these days, it feels as if the United States has never been less united. The nation, it seems, has become fractured along political lines: Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, red, blue, etc. Sitting down for Thanksgiving dinner with family and friends has never been more uncomfortable. Avoiding the discussion on politics, it's ruined friendships, relationships. What has happened to America, and how can we reverse this trend? Well, I have two special guests joining me today. We have Randy Block and Ron Adams. Thank you both for joining me and taking your time out of your busy day. We have Ron Adams here today, as a lot of people know him for his famous Elvis tribute concerts. Thanks, Ron. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, and become a police officer in Birmingham. And I was a beat cop, and happened to be where a house was on fire, and pulled a guy out of fire and saved his life. Got police officer of the year in 1986, and went undercover. When I went undercover, I dyed my hair black and grew sideburns, and was in clubs buying cocaine for the city.
Right.
And a guy was doing an Elvis show, and he was terrible. He was drunk. He stumbled off stage and looked at me. I guess I'd been making a little fun of him, and he said, "You want to sing? You get up here and sing." So I started singing that night. Within 6 months, I quit the police department, had a tour bus, and was traveling the country.
Wow.
32 years ago.
So you've always been an Elvis fan.
Yeah.
Who's not an Elvis fan?
I know it. Awesome. Well, we also have Randy Block here today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an Air Force veteran and very much avid outdoorsman. I love everything outdoors: hunting, fishing. We used to have an outdoors radio show, and what we used to say is loved all the ings other than working. So
right. Oh, yeah.
Whether it's kayaking, fishing, hunting, I'm there. Father of 3 beautiful daughters, and I'm pawpaw to 4 beautiful grandchildren.
Nice.
And I'm originally from Cincinnati. Left there to join the Air Force, and
thank you for your service.
Spent about 20 years here in the Emerald Coast, living in Fort Walton, and love this area, love this country.
Awesome. Well, on today's show, I am going to give the platform to these men, as they have a lot of concerns because they love this country. And I would like for all of you to discuss some of the issues going on right now and what's causing this divide. So, who would like to go first?
All right. Again, Randy Block. And, as I stated earlier, I'm an Air Force veteran. And even before then, because of my upbringing, my father was Army. My grandfather was Army Air Corps. Father, his father was a policeman, and his father was in the Civil War. So a long service oriented family. I love America and what it stands for. And it seems that we're going down a very dark trail because, we're proud of our country, but we have instances, as we were talking right before the show, that if you wear a hat and it says "Make America Great Again," which is a short phrase and it's a positive statement about our country, and somehow that is construed as a racist, when it is just a positive statement about our country.
I remember when I was a police officer, I went through police academy, there was a sweet lady, a black lady named Betty Gamble, and she was, I found out later, the first black female police officer in Birmingham, which had been a very segregated city, and they had a lot of racial tensions back in the day. Well, I didn't realize that at the time, but she was over the police academy, and she was a sergeant at the time. And I realized pretty quick that she didn't like me, which was strange because I thought everybody likes me. I'm a very funny guy, and everybody likes me, and I wasn't political at all back then. And I realized, she brought me in the office and she said, "Is that your old yellow Pontiac Tempest?" I said, "It is." "Do you know that's a rebel flag on the front of your car?" And I said, "Yeah." "Where did you get that?" I said, "A friend gave it to me." She said, "What does that mean to you?" I said, "Well, really, nothing. I'm from the South." I had no idea that black folks did not like the rebel flag because of the slavery thing. Never had crossed my mind. I was 24 years old. She had to explain that to me. Now, I took that off. because
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I graduated from the police academy. But I remember thinking then, it's kind of like with the MAGA hat. I didn't see it that way. I wasn't thinking those thoughts. And today when I wear a MAGA hat, when somebody looks at me funny, I think, why? Because you're right, it's a positive message.
And as you alluded to at the beginning, when it comes to relationships, and I've had the same instance where whether I'm at work, and I'm a very outspoken person, and I've been told don't talk politics at work. But yet other people will be talking politics at work, and it may not be what I feel, but it is very divisive and it becomes heated very quickly. And also I've noticed that it's not only in that environment, but whether we're out with friends or I'm at a party. I've been at Christmas parties and you have to hush your mouth. It's to the point where people are having a hard time having any type of dialogue. You almost cannot bring up anything, not even just political, whether it be abortion or America, you name the subject. When I grew up, people had a common core. So your political affiliation really wasn't what defined you. It was it was just a satellite of you. You had your core, and then there were things about you, where you come from, party affiliation, what you do for a living. Now it seems that political affiliation is number one question. If you're a Republican, you have to think and do over here, and if you're a Democrat, you have to think and do over here. It almost should be the first question on online dating or match site.
Well, actually, my daughter lives in Aspen, Colorado, and she moved up there. And a lot of these kids, I call them kids, they're 25 years old. They live in people's houses, in a bedroom of their house, because it's the housing is so tough. And so there was a fella that had a house outside of town, and he had somebody living downstairs, and he was going to let my daughter rent the room. His very first question was, "You're not a conservative, are you?" And Sam
See?
said,
Isn't that
"Excuse
crazy?"
me?" And he said, "You didn't vote for Trump, because if you voted for Trump, I will not rent you the room in my house." And I remember thinking, "Oh my goodness!" I said, "Well, Sam, what did you tell him?" She said, "I told him I haven't voted yet."
Right.
So, because with Trump, when she wasn't old enough to vote,
Right.
So,
and
it's a shame, really.
As you spoke of earlier, where the black woman thought of you because of an emblem on your car.
Right.
So you were stereotyped by that.
Absolutely.
And now I'm finding that, because I am more of a conservative, and I don't like to label myself a Republican, because I'm a free thinker. I'm an independent man, and I'm going to think way I do. So, I'm not going to be, columned because I'm Republican or Democrat, or, I have my own thoughts. I'm an intelligent person. I don't need to be told what to think. But, it's a stereotype on me. Just as you said, okay, I voted for Trump.
Right.
But I didn't vote for Trump because I'm racist and pro-life and all these things. I voted for Trump because of the two candidates.
Right, that's exactly
he was the avenue most closely aligned with my beliefs.
Right.
But now that I've voted for him, or if you say you're conservative, I'm automatically labeled, you're pro-gun and you don't like children, which is absurd.
A lot of the things are absurd, and I think it's because the country now has gotten so tribal. And just with this Jussie Smollett thing, when that happened, I thought that everybody, black, white, rich, poor, realized, okay, this guy's guilty. He's done this to himself, and this is why he's done it. But no, there's a big faction of people that simply say, well, I'm going to stick with him because I'm gay too, or I'm going to stick with him, whether he's right or wrong, because I'm black too. And so when you start having that, then this becomes very dangerous in our society.
Yeah. I was reading a book by Mike Huckabee called Do the Right Thing. And there was one chapter in that book that really stuck with me, where Mr. Huckabee talks about the idiot box on the TV, and these 24-hour news channels have done a wonderful job of putting us against each other on, are you right or are you left? And his point is are you right or are you wrong? That's the real thing. Are you a righteous person or are you not righteous? And, just like being a Trump supporter. you're a racist. You're against. No, I'm not against abortion. I do believe that a woman's body is her body, but there's also with that is personal responsibility because they say, well, abortion should be allowed if a woman's having this or that or there was rape involved. There are millions of abortions that are happening, and those aren't those conditions. We've lost our morality. So abortion has now become the new contraceptive. People aren't doing safe sex practices. They aren't, being responsible for themselves. The responsible thing is, well, I got pregnant and I'll just get an abortion. So it's not the abortion topic. I think we have some things wrong with us that are morally based, not subject matter.
Yeah.
You voted for Trump, you're pro-gun, you must hate children. And that is not. We have 300 plus million people in the United States. I'm pro-gun because that is how we are as Americans, and that's a right that's given to me not by the Constitution or God above. That's a right because I'm a living human being on this earth, and what's great about our country is they have the Constitution that backs that right. I'm able to protect me, my family, my loved ones, or anyone around me because I have that right, and it's not to be taken from me. So the actions of one idiot who wakes up one day and decides he's going to be doing bad things to people and he kills 10 people, well, 300 million people should not lose that right because of the actions of one person.
It's kind of like this, if you don't take away somebody's car so that you can prevent car fatalities.
Correct.
Hey, there was 4 cars that killed people yesterday, so give me your vehicle. So it doesn't. Well, it wasn't me. I didn't do that. Well, I know, but if we take your car away, well, that's one less chance of somebody dying.
And by all means, if he was a drunk driver, then we should take all the alcohol away.
That's right.
That's just absurd. You hold that one person responsible for those actions.
And I always carry a gun because carrying a police officer is too heavy.
Oh, right. But as we talk about this, the way it comes full circle is with relationships, whether it be, and like you said, when you're at work or you're starting to date, it's to the point where most of the people that I surround myself. It's mostly conservatives.
Well, you feel like sometimes you're just walking on eggshells because when you're in a group or a party and you might want to talk about something and that has to do with what's going on in the news and you don't know, if they're for it or against it.
Right.
And you're seeing that too, right, Ron?
Yeah, I see it all the time, and it's really, really sad. Now, people know me well enough now to know that they generally don't want to get into it with me because I talk very logically to them.
Right.
And they really don't want that. What people would rather you do is yell and scream and act like an idiot, and they say, well, I kind of won that argument.
Right.
But when you have good, honest dialogue back and forth and it makes sense, they really don't want to hear that because they've got their mind made up and already divided themselves. Now, I'm married for 29 years. I believe I'll be married until I'm 120 years old. But if I wasn't, then I have to admit that even if I was going to have a relationship with a lady, I would have to know. Not because I have a problem with her being
what
a liberal,
she believes,
but because I honestly believe that most of the people that are really, really staunch liberals actually hate me. They think that I'm the problem, that I'm the one that's causing the problems in the country. And if somebody looks at me and thinks you're the problem, then I really don't want to be around that person.
And it used to be religion. Like,
yes.
If 2 people are getting married, what's your religion? And this is totally over the religion. But
absolutely.
What about toxic masculinity? I've been hearing a lot about that.
Well, I've heard a lot about it, and I have a question for you, actually.
Okay.
Because even though I've heard about toxic masculinity, I've never had anybody explain to me what the definition of that toxic
Randy is going to be able to explain it better.
Well, so
he's the one that brought this up.
The first time I heard this, and it seems to me that they make up labels for things that either don't exist or it's something that feeds to that narrative. It's almost like they're making up reasons to dislike me.
Right.
So so you said you're the Elvis impersonator. Elvis known for his masculinity and the way he gyrates on stage. Could you imagine going back to the 1950s and somebody saying, "Excuse me, Elvis, you need to tame that down a little
You're
bit.
too masculine.
You're too masculine."
Well, and if there's toxic masculinity, if that's the case, then obviously on the other hand, there have to be feminine. What would they call that?
Feminine toxicity.
Feminine toxicity as well.
Yeah,
Right.
you need to cover up yourself because you know,
yeah.
you're
Toxic
little,
femininity.
your
Right.
sexiness is
You're
Too much.
you're too much like a lady.
Yeah,
you're
Yeah.
too much like a woman. You're too pretty. You're too
I've
sweet.
never heard of that though, but it is. It's like they're wanting men to become weaker and weaker.
I'm going to be honest with you. As a man, you almost don't know what you're supposed to be. And I'll step out on a ledge here and say, as a white male, 50-year-old conservative, I am not embarrassed about anything I am. And I will state out, I just did, I'm conservative, I'm white. I have no way of controlling what my color is.
Would you like to apologize for being a white male?
No. At no
Yeah.
point will I ever apologize for anything I am or do. But with the term toxic masculinity, I it's like, what exactly would you like me to be? Because the women here for spring break, and whether it be the male dancers, you won't see men hooing and hawing about a 110-pound skinny geek, stripping in front of them. But you throw a group of firefighters out there, and the women are going to lose their minds. Mm-hmm. When they go to the beach, or are they looking for the pale little skinny guy, or are they looking for the guy that spends some time in the gym? And I personally think that a woman is looking for a man who not only compliments them, but makes them feel safe.
Right.
And
Safe
that's
is a
the
big
questions
thing.
that I would have to women out there is, what is it exactly that you want from me as a man? Are you wanting to feel safe and secure? Because, if it's not my physical stature, the fact that I do know how to use a firearm and I do know how to protect, and for a woman to know that I will jump out in front of you to protect you and I'm your
What
shield.
brought up all this toxic masculinity? I mean, what are people saying about it?
It seems to be that rather the Democrats or the left, as it's termed, they are attacking sort of like the Donald Trumps, his followers, where he is a masculine man. He takes no shit from anyone. He says what he wants to, and that's they see that as almost a bad thing, but if you look at it, he is a billionaire, and he's the president of the United States, but he didn't get where he is in stature, either financially or his stature in the world. You don't go into business meetings known as a weakling. He's not going to be a billionaire if you can roll him over.
Exactly.
And you can, so he comes across and he will tell you he's not apologetic. And to, I guess some people that is, I guess the word
Rude.
they're
We've
using
never
is
had
toxic.
a president do that before.
And it's almost as if I bring things back to the root, and it feels to me like a control issue. It's almost like that those people on the left look at a man, and then particularly a white man, and if you have any money at all, a white man with money, and that's the worst of all of them. You're a man, and you're white, and you have money. It's almost like a power struggle. And they want to take that power away and usurp that power. I believe this thing that's going on with Joe Biden, y'all seen, you kept up with all that, all the touchy-feely.
I do watch a little politics.
Let me sniff your hair. And,
Right.
I honestly believe that it's not going to be the Republicans or the conservatives that's going to throw as big a fit about that as it's going to be the left, because they don't want any old, white, wealthy men anymore. No. The party is going so rogue. We would rather have a black female that's a Muslim, because those are hitting all the target areas and pulling away from that. And it's a shame, but I think that he may have a really a big struggle. And in my opinion, he's got the best chance of beating Donald Trump. But in my opinion, I don't think the Democrats are going to let him run because they don't want to take a chance of another white male winning the presidency.
Interesting. What do you think, Randy?
I think he's nailed it. For him to go in, and I don't think he's announced yet, but
No,
I
I
think
don't
He has
think
not.
so.
because this week is just a small portion of what he's going to run into, because he's, like you said, he's not only going to get hammered on the Republican side, the Democrat side is going to eat their young on this one.
Yes.
Because even though he's in the lead, he is not their poster child.
Right.
And they're not going to want to have to answer to them, because everything that they've been speaking about, toxic masculinity, white privileged men, he falls under all those, except he's got a D next to his name instead of an R. So,
Another thing I wanted to bring up with this whole toxic thing is, I don't know, Ron, if you've heard where the Boy Scouts are pretty much not in existence anymore, that they went bankrupt. Randy, you want to tell them a little bit about it? Like, Boy Scouts should be Boy Scouts. Girl Scouts should not be mixed with the Boy Scouts.
this goes back to what I'd said earlier about as a man, and even if I was a young man growing up in this world, it's really, what exactly do you want me to be? Because they've got it to where you don't know which bathroom you're supposed to be using, because male and female is not enough. We've got too many genders. No, there's two genders. You're either a male or you're a female. If there's some confusion there, just look down. It's real easy to figure out. So now there's that blending, and this is my opinion. But we've got some friends that are teachers, and talking with them, and they've said that they're no longer teaching cursive. And I actually thought about, why wouldn't you teach cursive? Because right, but you don't see really people writing checks, and most people don't write much anymore. They're typing. But for me, what is the one thing that you do in cursive that defines you? And that is your signature. And by taking away cursive, these things, these topics that we've talked about, toxic masculinity, they're trying to take my manhood away. And then they're trying to make me apologetic for everything that I do. Well, that one thing that defines you,
Your signature.
Donald Trump has his signature. President Obama had his. You knew that person by that. If you don't learn cursive, what is your signature?
Exactly.
When you write your name, John Hancock on the Constitution, if no one knew cursive, what are you supposed to do? Print your name? So you kind of lose your identity when you don't have a signature.
But going back to the Boy Scout thing, what I was telling you before, like you were saying earlier, Randy, about how do you learn to be a man?
Well, it goes back to what I was saying is they're kind of taking away things that define you as a man. So they're not going to get me to change. If I'm toxic and masculine, well, guess what? I'm going to be toxic masculine until I'm in the dirt.
Well, and then you've got the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. And obviously where all this come about was the Girl Scouts, not in the Boy Scouts' mind, but in the girls' mind. Some woman, some female, had got together and thought, okay, well, the Boy Scouts, that's better than being a Girl Scout. Now, first of all, that's almost anticlimactic. You're almost attacking yourself by saying it's better to be a Boy Scout because they have more prestige. We want to be with them.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to drop the names and then just call it the Scouts. Well, nevertheless, you still have boys and girls. Are you going to still go on camping trips?
Exactly. And then it brings up all these other issues.
Yes, lots of issues, because when I grew up, and I still do it now, I'll open the door for the lady and walk on the dangerous side of the sidewalk closest to the cars. A lot of things I do. Now, are they going to teach the boys to do that? Because you're a boy.
How can they do that when the little girls are with them?
Right. Now the girls are with them, and so do you open the tent and let the girls in the tent? I mean, what do you do? It gets so confusing, and the reason that it's confusing is because people are trying to divide us. It's not good enough anymore to say, you're a boy, that means you probably can carry stuff heavier than I can. I'm a girl, that means I could probably shoot as good as you because you don't have to have strength for that. There's good things and bad things about both.
I just think it's sad. I was a Brownie. I was a Girl Scout. And I think they should just be separated.
Absolutely.
You're going through all kind of physical and mental changes at that age anyway.
One thing about the Boy Scouts, which I was a Cub Scout and a Boy Scout, my brother was a Boy Scout, is the Boy Scouts, yes, we go on camping trips and things like that. But even if you break it down to the Boy Scout creed and what they were about, it's almost like juvenile man school. You learned about morality. You learned about being a civilian, pride in America, God. But it was that was your indoctrination to manhood. And it said, hey, in this civilization we have, there are expectations of you as a man. Because you're going to be a father, you're going to be a soldier, you're going to be now a partial breadwinner. You're going to have a lot of responsibility on you. You don't wait till you're 18 to learn those. That's where you learn them. That's where I learned to, like you said, help people across the street. You did merit badges and you did things for society. As you spoke to about our radio show, one of our first guests that we had, and actually worked with us on the show, and he was an Eagle Scout, and he did some projects here with the schools. They were good civilians, and they learned that, the morality and the way to be a positive person in civilization. So if you've taken away the Boy Scouts, now those boys don't have that indoctrination. They don't have that educational factor early in life when we need those things.
Because they're not teaching it in school.
We need it instilled. So now they're in front of the Game Boy. They're in front of the idiot boxes on the TV. They're going to school and acting up, and there's no control in the schools. The students have control over the teachers. You can't spank them. You can't discipline them. Where exactly in this chain of going from a child to an adolescent to a young man and to an adulthood, where exactly are you supposed to learn the things? Where is he going to learn to open a door for a woman?
And that's why we have so much problems, and we have so many gangs in places like Chicago. There is no discipline, there is no respect, and all there is they demand respect for themselves, and the way they get it is killing other people.
Yeah.
Right.
It's ridiculous. They never was taught anything.
And to bring this full circle into your discussion of how this affects relationships is, I've heard many of our friends state, I can't find a good man. Well, one of the reasons you're not finding a good man is because you have people that are being brought up through that period of time. No Boy Scouts, no responsibility,
right.
No discipline in school. He can badmouth his parents. The parents can't do anything. If he raises his voice and they spank him, he's calling children's services. So now you have these men that are now young adults, and these women are saying, "Hey, where's that man?" Well, my boyfriend doesn't open the door for me. My boyfriend won't walk, as you said, on the correct side on the street side, the danger side. When you said that, I'm like, well, I understand what he's talking about.
I never.
Most people don't. Most people don't, but you do.
I would bet you that there's a lot of young men out there that have no idea what we're talking about.
Right.
Because, as I said, you go to toxic masculinity, I'm going to walk on the street side to protect the woman because that's what's ingrained in me.
I wasn't even aware that men do that. Well, I guess not all of them do, right?
Well, but I do a lot of stuff like that subconsciously,
right.
Because I was taught to be that way.
Right.
If I go into a restaurant, I sit with where I'm facing the door.
Yeah, back against the wall.
You do that too, Ron?
Yes.
And the reason I do that is I do not expect something to happen. But it's just like an insurance policy on your home or anything. Nobody wakes up today and says, well, at 3:15 today I'm going to be mugged, or at 8:20 tonight on my run I'm going to get raped.
So are y'all uncomfortable if you end up having your back towards the door?
Yes, I'm extremely
uncomfortable. So what if the woman with you wants to be the other side? Because they have to have a chance.
I will ask her very politely, is it okay if I sit over there?
But what if she's like, God, I really don't want to because I'm going to be staring at a wall.
I've had that happen. And what I do is I tell them, you've got the door.
Okay.
And
in other words, if somebody comes in, you're protecting
Or y'all
me.
can both just sit on the same side, right?
and I've actually had to explain that. And I said, like you said, it's almost a subconscious thing for me to do. But if I'm not sitting in that position, I will actually state something, you've got the door. And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, well, I sit that way so that if something happens, I see it first before you and I can react. But if you're going to sit there and you're going to take that away from me, understand that I'm relying upon you to either take the lead or let me know, because then I can react to that situation.
I was in Aspen in December at Christmas time to see my daughter, and she was dating a guy. He was about 28, 29 years old. And so we go skiing, and when we come down, he has all of his stuff, and he's walking off. and she's got all of her stuff, and I've got my stuff. Well, I go over and I take her stuff as much as I can carry.
Right.
You know, that's natural to me. Now, I would have done that if you had been there.
Right.
If any lady had been there. But he doesn't think that way because he wasn't taught that way.
Right.
What he's taught is, I'm going to get a beer, and the beer is over there. Everybody else is on your own.
But you would think it would be natural instinct for a guy to do that.
Some things have to be taught.
God.
And that goes back to is the Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts.
That's young man school.
Exactly.
But it has been, they've taken it, and it goes back to what I said about your autograph with cursive, toxic masculinity. They're telling, don't be the strong man. They're taking those identities away. They took away the Boy Scouts and, like you said, made it Scouts. And now they've gone bankrupt because they've diluted it to the point where the people that did support it are saying, you know what, I'll just do this on my own because that avenue is no longer working.
Right.
So now I believe they went bankrupt, and so now what do we do?
Yeah. Okay, so we've allowed our political affiliations to define us as human beings. So what do we do about that? How do we get there from here? I mean, do you see that this is going to get any better?
Well, I hope that it'll get better. And I know that we must all try to make it better. But I don't see it happening anytime soon. It seems to me as it's getting worse and worse. Now, I make a concentrated effort to try to make it better. I actually, on purpose, try to have black friends and female friends, and I try to have discussions with them and talk about it and talk about things, and so that we can be on the same page, so that they realize I don't hate you.
Right.
You know, and this is going to sound crude, but it just is.
Go ahead.
You know, the only time that I hate somebody is if they hate me first.
Right.
In other words, I don't.
Yeah.
If you hate Muslims, no, I don't hate Muslims unless you're one of the Muslims that want to kill me. Then I hate you.
Right.
I hate you back.
Yeah.
And if I get a chance before you kill me, I'm going to kill you first.
Right.
But I don't hate somebody because they're Muslim or
Exactly.
because they're black. And so I try to give everybody an opportunity, and I try to be completely open-minded. And even with my very conservative friends, I look for things that we disagree on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember I posted something a week or so ago, and this was more of a religious type of thing.
Uh-huh.
But I posted, should you always forgive somebody, even if they're going to continue to do you wrong and they've not asked for forgiveness? You would be surprised.
Uh-huh.
85% of the people said you should forgive them for yourself, whether they ask for forgiveness or not, and even if you know they're going to do you wrong in the future. I vehemently disagree with that.
Right.
You know, I said, look, I try to.
It's called unconditional love.
Yeah, I said, I try to be more like God. I knew that would get them. Well, God forgives. I said, no, God only forgives if you ask Him. If you don't ask God to forgive, then He's not going to forgive you, and you may go to hell.
Right.
So I'm trying to do like God. If you ask for my forgiveness, and you're not going to continue to steal from me every day,
right,
then I will forgive you. But you can't, in my opinion, you can't forgive somebody that doesn't realize they've done anything wrong. They stole from you, and you say, hey, you stole from me. Yes, I did. Well, I'm going to forgive you because I don't want that on my heart. Okay. Then they steal something else. Did you realize you just stole from me again?
Forgive them again.
I know, but you need to forgive me because, you know, you're a good person.
Right.
I mean, what I'm saying is at some point, you have to have a responsibility, take responsibility.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know, to answer your question, I don't think as far as it's gone because, as Ron said earlier, it seems to be getting worse. And I do the same thing where, and I'm kind of in a good situation with being around military members a lot, where I have a lot of encounters with every color and creed. I have friends that are black, you know, white, you name it. I've had friends. I open my home to a lot of people. I've always had a misfit mentality. You know, the island of misfit toys. That's kind of my motto with my house. Is everyone is welcome, but leave your bullshit at the door, because when you come in, you know you are you are you know your name and what you bring positive to my home. Because if you're bringing that negativity, you're out. Because we don't have time for that negativity. Now, if you have something, you know, you have an issue, that's different. But if you're coming in through the door, you're here to have fun, and you're here to be you as an individual, and leave all your baggage outside the door. And I just have a bad feeling that we're going to come to critical mass with this situation, because not only are there different ideas out there, but there's violence attached to it. I came in today, there was an 85-year-old man who was attacked because he had a pro-life sign, and someone who was pro-abortion. No, it was a Facebook video. But that person was attacked. 85-year-old man kicked and beaten on the street because he had a pro-life and somebody that was against it. The two people, the other side could not accept it. There's another human being, and like I said, we have 300 plus million people in this country. You're going to have differences of opinion. But one guy didn't like the other opinion, so he had to attack that person. Antifa, they don't like something, so they tear up neighborhoods and burn down everything. If someone has a MAGA hat, they're attacked in a restaurant. It's just a man with a hat. For him, that's a sign of pride for his country. If you don't like it, don't look at it. Don't wear it. But just because one person is doing that, but there's violence attacked to it. Now, Ron's a pretty good sized guy. I'm a pretty good sized. I don't think that if I'm wearing a MAGA hat, there's going to be many people going to try to take it off my head. And if you do, you're going to suffer consequences. I'm usually armed. So if you attack me or one of my loved ones, there's going to be consequences. So I do think that, and it's unfortunate, I don't want it to come to that critical mass, that bad situation. Hopefully, people can identify this in a large quantity, in the masses. So let's start turning off the television. Let's start putting down the social media and the phones and talk to each other. And I say that because how many times have you been out and watched two people on a date? I love to watch people. And you see two people on a date and the girl's dressed up. She spent an hour getting ready and her hair's done, her makeup, and she's in a dress. He just looks like he went to the ball game and he's on his phone and she's just sitting there thinking, man, I wish he would just have a conversation with me. And I see it everywhere I go.
Oh, yeah.
But it all goes back to, you take the Boy Scouts and everything else, and was he taught how to be a man? A real man, or the toxic masculine men are going to know that, hey, put that phone down because you're in the presence of a beautiful woman. Spend the time with her. The conversation is, there's nothing more important on that phone than that person that's sitting across from you.
See, as we were growing up, we were always taught, you want to be a man, you want to be masculine. So that phrase, masculine, was a positive thing. The more masculine I can be, it means I'm going to be in shape and I'm going to be polite and I'm going to take responsibility. Now they add the word toxic to it, and now it's all of a sudden, is that a bad thing? And there'll be guys that think, "Oh my God, that's a bad thing. I need to be more like, a girl. A girl. I need to.
We do not want girls.
I need to have feelings like a girl. I need to get in touch with my inner self."
Well, y'all can still get in touch with your inner self.
But
you see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like Ron said earlier, I'm not going to apologize. If I am a toxic masculine man, label me.
Well, I'm one of those women that want a masculine man.
Well, if you get rid of all, in my opinion, what they consider, and I don't believe there's a toxic masculinity. I just don't believe in that, okay? But if who they label as toxic masculinity, I believe it would be most everybody, every man in the military. And so if you say you don't need those, well, then you don't have a military. And if you don't have a military, you can't protect your country. You don't have a country, and we all die.
Right.
So I suggest that if there is toxic masculinity, we need them to survive.
Exactly.
And
when I'll say to you one example. I was a police officer, and when back in 1986, I was working a beat. It was the middle of the night, and I saw a house on fire. I called the fire department, but I got there before anybody else. I heard a man screaming on the inside. Now, it wasn't my job. I wasn't a fireman. I had a gun on, that could go off. It wasn't my job to go in there, but I hear this man screaming. The fire department hadn't got there yet. I took my gun belt off. I go inside, and apparently he'd been smoking in the bed. It was an older black gentleman, and I drag him out, singe all the hair off my head, my eyelashes, my eyebrows, singed everything off of me, and but it saved his life. Now, I didn't do that because I wanted to be a hero. I did that because it was just right instinct.
It was just instinct,
and then maybe somebody that wasn't as toxic as I was might have said, "I'm going to wait for the fire department."
and honestly, I think if you were to poll most people out there without any affiliation, I think that the majority of the core of people like you said, Christy, you like a man who is manly. And, you can define that as you want. But the issue is that the squeaky wheel is getting so much attention that you have a small percentage of people that are making these comments, but it's affecting the masses because it's up on the television and you're being told, these terms, and it's an absurd term. I refuse to acknowledge it because I just think it's idiotic.
We are the greatest country, and it's like, it's sad. And I just want everything to get better. But like you said, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
when I wake up in the morning and I go to work, I don't really have time to even contemplate this subject matter they have about either toxic masculinity or are you for abortion or against abortion. I'm trying to make ends meet and take care of my family. I'm not worried, when I see a man at the color of his skin. I'm just trying to make ends meet and do my thing. I don't go around, and that's one, you talked about having people of color and talking with them. There was a discussion at work, and it came about that, and I explained that to them as I really don't concern myself when I meet you with the color of your skin,
right,
because I have enough on my plate, and I'm sure you do too, and hopefully together we can work, and we can both thrive in this environment. This is America. It's the greatest country on earth. There's room for all of us, but these crazy, whether it be the Green Deal or the toxic masculinity and which gender are you? These are things that are just.
It's almost like people look for a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know there's still racism out there. I totally understand that on both sides. But I promise you, it's not near as bad as it was in the 50s and in the 60s. It's just not. It's just not. And there is still, like some white police officers that mistreat black people. There is some of that goes up, but it's not as prevalent as you think. And when you have one incident, and it's over in Chicago, and then you see it all over the news, all over the country, it almost makes it look like this is happening every day in every city all over the country. It's not the case. They're looking for these gender problems, and they're looking for the baker that won't bake the cake for the gay guy, looking for these things so that they can create a problem.
And I'm old enough, and I think all of us are here, to remember a time when we didn't have cable. So when you talk about news, you had one at dinner time for 30 minutes.
Walter Cronkite.
And you had maybe you had a local news, maybe a national news. Then you didn't see any news again until about 11. And usually I'm in bed. I was going to school. So that was one.
You got 30 minutes a day.
And that was Dad at the end of the night because he's worked till 9, 10 o'clock at night. And he comes home and he wants to catch the news. Now you've got 24-hour news coverage, but there's not 24 hours of news.
Right.
And they call it news, but it's just propaganda. Right. So these things that are being pumped into our heads, it's not news, but you're being, and I use the word triggered, which I hate. People are reacting to everything they see and hear because it's on all day long.
It is.
It's a 24-hour
people are watching it all day
negative pump into your head. Whether it's The View or the news channels, it's negative. That's what I'm saying is, how do we get around this and how do we go back to humanity?
I have no idea.
Turn off the television.
Well, yeah, but it's addicting. People it's just like getting on your phone, social media, and all that. Well, look, guys, I hate to cut you guys off because I know we could talk all night, but time's running out. I wanted to thank both of you again, Ron and Randy, and I so appreciate you both being here. We would love to have you back, and thank you for listening to me today. Please visit my website at ask-christy.com to subscribe to my newsletter. All of my links are also on there, as well as my social media. Please email me with any questions and feedback that you would have and would like for me to discuss on the show. Thanks again, and just ask Christy.